There's a song you've probably heard 100 times, maybe more. A simple melody, a father's voice, a son's voice, and a lifetime in between. But behind those familiar lyrics is a deeper story, one of love, of regret, and of a man who didn't realize he was writing the soundtrack to his own fate. That man was Harry Chapin, a name etched into the heart of 1970s folk rock. Born on December 7th, 1942, Harry Chapin was more than just a singer-songwriter. He was a philanthropist, a hunger activist, and a passionate believer in using music to make the world better. Over the course of his career, he achieved worldwide success, selling more than 16 million records. He earned a Grammy Award and was later inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame, honors that reflected both his musical brilliance and the emotional power of his storytelling. What many listeners don't know is that Harry Chapin didn't write the original lyrics. His wife, Sandy Chapin, did. Sandy was a poet, a woman finely attuned to the emotional currents of everyday life. In the early 1970s, she penned a poem about a father who was too busy for his child, only to grow old and realize the child had become just like him, distant, unavailable, and burdened with the same responsibilities. The inspiration came partly from her first marriage and partly from observing a friend newly navigating fatherhood. The poem was raw and truthful, and it sat untouched until Harry found it. The moment he read it, something clicked. "This is a song," Harry said, "and I have to write it." What followed was more than an adaptation. It was a transformation. He reshaped the lines into verses, added a haunting melody, and gave the piece emotional momentum. The result was Cats in the Cradle, a song that would become his most iconic and prophetic work. Cats in the Cradle takes us through a life in fast forward. A baby is born, the father's too busy. The child grows, the father remains unavailable. Time passes. Suddenly the child is a man. And the father, now old and longing for connection, hears his own words echoed back to him. "I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time." The most painful line? He'd grown up just like me. It's more than poetic. It's tragic. The chorus, "The cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man in the moon," sounds gentle, almost like a lullaby. But as the song progresses, it becomes a quiet scream, a ticking clock. Childhood passes quickly. The song reminds us, you don't know what you're losing until the years are gone. Released in 1974 as part of the album Verities and Balderdash, the song shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 by December. It wasn't just a hit. It became part of the cultural fabric. It played on radios, in living rooms, in long car rides, and late at night when people thought about the calls they hadn't made. Fathers wept quietly in silence. Sons listened and wondered about their future. It struck a nerve. Yet despite the deeply emotional narrative in Cats in the Cradle, the truth about Harry Chapin's own family life tells a different story. Harry had a loving and attentive relationship with his children, particularly his son, Joshua Chapin. He often emphasized in interviews that the song was not autobiographical. In fact, the original lyrics came from Sandy Chapin's own observations and past experiences, including the difficult relationship between her first husband and his father. Still, Harry understood the emotional weight of the song. He admitted that it haunted him, because even though the story wasn't about him, it could become his story if he wasn't careful. As a touring musician, Chapin spent long stretches on the road, but he made a conscious effort not to let his work rob him of fatherhood. He was determined not to become the man in the song. Joshua Chapin and other family members have since spoken about Harry's deep commitment to being present as a father, whether it was carving out moments during his tours to call home or creating time between shows to be with his kids. Chapin worked hard to avoid the regrets portrayed in his own music. The song for him was a cautionary tale, not a confession. And then, in 1981, the story turned tragic. On July 16, Harry Chapin was killed in a car accident on the Long Island Expressway. He was just 38 years old. The man who had written so hauntingly about time lost ran out of time himself. He left behind his wife, his children, his music, and a legacy that would outlive him in heartbreaking ways. Harry's death was more than a loss to music. It was a loss to activism, too. Few know that he had helped found World Hunger Year, a nonprofit dedicated to ending hunger and poverty. He donated much of his income to charity and often played benefit concerts. At the time of his death, it's estimated that half his concerts were for causes, not profit. In many ways, he lived as urgently as he sang, trying to make the most of every day. But even he couldn't escape the warning buried inside his most famous song. And then, more than a decade later, a new generation discovered Cats in the Cradle, but not through folk radio or acoustic records. This time, it came through electric guitars and snarling vocals. Enter Ugly Kid Joe. In 1992, the alternative metal band released a gritty, rock-infused cover of the song on their debut album, America's Least Wanted. Known more for their sarcasm and rebellious energy, the choice was unexpected. But their version, stripped of irony and full of raw emotion, hit just as hard. Lead singer Whitfield Crane gave the lyrics a darker, desperate edge, and the distortion-heavy arrangement underscored the frustration at the heart of the song. Ugly Kid Joe's cover reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was played in heavy rotation on MTV. For a whole new generation, teenagers navigating broken homes and distant parents, it was their first experience of Chapin's message. And despite the genre shift, the song's soul remained intact. Its pain, its warning, its quiet devastation, all still there. That cover proved something important. Great songwriting transcends style. Whether it's played on a gentle acoustic or screamed over distorted amps, the story hits home. The regret is the same. The mirror still reflects. Cats in the Cradle lives on because it speaks to something universal. At its core, it's not just a song about a father and son. It's a mirror held up to anyone who's ever said, "not now," one too many times. It captures the small, silent tragedies of everyday life. The postponed phone call, the missed birthday, the quiet moments we meant to share but let slip by. It reminds us that love isn't just about feeling. It's about showing up. It's about time. And time is the one thing we never get back. The song echoes with a warning most of us don't hear until it's too late, that the people we care about won't always be waiting, that our roles in life, child, parent, friend, shift while we're busy. It reveals the painful irony that we often become the very thing we once resented, simply by default, by distraction, or by delay. Cats in the Cradle stays with us because it doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't accuse, it reflects. And in that reflection, many of us see our own lives, our own regrets, our own missed chances. That's what gives it its power. That's why, decade after decade, it continues to strike a chord. Because beneath its haunting melody lies an inescapable truth. Love needs presence, not promises. Time is the currency of connection. And once it's gone, no apology, no gesture, no song can buy it back. So whether you hear it through Harry Chapin's tender voice or Ugly Kid Joe's anguished roar, the message is clear. Call them now. Show up now. Make time now. Because once the cradle rocks empty and the voice on the other end says, "I'd love to, Dad, if I could find the time," it may already be too late. And all is the echo.